Hello and welcome to another Python tutorial. So in our last video, I kind of introduced the whole topic about how we can leverage the VBA model, so the Excel object model, PowerPoint, basically any kind of object model that we've been working with in VBA. I introduced the topic of using that same model inside of Python. And so people seem to like the video. People seem to enjoy kind of the direction we're going. I think for a lot of people, they weren't aware that this was possible. They were kind of in my situation where like, wait, you can do this? And so obviously with that being said, it kind of opens up a whole new world to us and kind of what we can do. And so I'm going to just start throwing out some videos out there, kind of gauge what people are kind of working towards or stuff like that. And probably one of the first ones that I'm going to go into is how we can talk to different applications at the same time within Python. So the idea behind here in this example is we're going to kind of recreate a video where I was taking Excel ranges and putting them into a PowerPoint, but we're going to use it. We're going to do it in a way that leverages more Python objects. That's the overall goal with this. So I'm really excited to do this video. I think it's going to open up kind of a new direction we can take. And just kind of play around with it. So with that being said, as you can tell, I have my Jupyter notebook open. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to close this out just temporarily, and I'm going to open up an Excel workbook. Been listening to my Star Wars music. It's very peaceful. Lucas King, if you've ever listened to his channel, good music. Okay, so here is the book that if you've seen my other video related to Excel to PowerPoint, this probably looks very familiar to you then because this is the same exact workbook. The goal, we're going to take all these named ranges, so, not like that. We're going to take these ranges right here, this one, and we're going to copy them over to a PowerPoint presentation. I do want to let you know that these are not just normal Excel ranges. These are what we call name ranges. So if you go to formulas, the formula tab, and then you go to define name, this is how you create a name range. Now, the one that you're currently looking at is already a named range, so we don't need to recreate it. But if you go to name manager, so right here to the left, and you open up this one, you can see all the ranges that I've predefined. And so it will tell you basically the values that are inside of it, what it refers to, the scope, and then any comments and things like that. And so the goal is to basically store each one of these ranges in a dictionary object, loop through that dictionary, and then copy them over to a PowerPoint presentation. So pretty cool stuff. So I'm going to jump back into Python. And from here, what we're going to do is we're going to start typing. So the first thing we want to do is we want to import our win32com.client object. This is the client object that allows us basically to talk to the Windows 32 API. Again, as a reminder, what we're doing today is only for Windows users, unfortunately. The Windows 32 API, you can't access it from Mac, at least from my understanding. So this is unfortunately something that is only reserved for Windows users. Okay, and then from here, what we need to do is we need to create a new instance of Excel. And so how we're going to do that is we're going to call a variable called Excel app. We're going to set this equal to the win32com. We're going to go into the client object, and then we're going to call dispatch. And then from here, we have to pass through the application that we want to create an instance of. Well, the application that we're concerned with is the Excel application. And then from here, we're good to go. So we've created our new instance of Excel. Now, just because we've created it doesn't mean we can see it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to set the visible property of our Excel app equal to true. So this will make sure that we can see it. And then from here, what we need to do is we need to open the workbook that contains our range of objects. So this one, I'm going to close out of it. And from there, then we can start looping through it and getting all the objects that we need out of it, or at least all the named ranges. So open workbook, open the workbook, store the ranges. Well, basically really here, it's just opening the workbook. So open the workbook. We'll keep it simple. So what we'll do is we'll create another variable called workbook. set this equal to our Excel app. We'll go into the workbooks collection, and then we'll call the open method, and then we have to pass through the file path. Now for me, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close this out, and then if I right click properties, I can get the file path right here. So I'll copy it, close it, and then go back in here. Now, if I put it just like this, you will get an error. What you actually would have to do is you'd have to put like something like this. We don't want to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to put an R in front of it. It stands for raw. So we say raw text in a sense. So we don't want to have to do any more formatting. We just want to put the string that you're currently seeing and take the raw version of it. So no modifications. That's kind of a trick in Python when we're working with file paths, because otherwise we'd have to do this one, and basically these double ones where it's just a little bit unnecessary. It saves us time for typing, so just put an R in front and it just means the raw text. Okay, and then from here what we're going to do is we're going to create a dictionary object. So create a dictionary object. A dictionary object is basically a hash table. It's a lookup table, so it's made up of keys and values. So if we pass through a key, we can return a value back to the user. And so to create a new dictionary, we're going to call it range dictionary, and it's going to be 2 squarely brackets. Then from here, we've created our dictionary object. What we're now going to do is we're going to loop through all the named ranges in my workbook, and we're going to store them in this dictionary that we just created. And so what we're going to do is we're going to loop through all the named ranges and store them in the dictionary. And so we're going to say for named range in, and then we're going to call the workbook object, and we're going to go into the names collection. So it's basically a property that returns a collection of all the named ranges in the workbook. And so what this is basically doing is it's creating a for each loop, sorry, that's going to loop through each one of these named ranges, and then we can do something with it. Now, when we're looping through it, obviously what we're going to do is we're going to store it in our dictionary. So the first thing that I'm going to do, it's not necessary to do it like this, but I just wanted to kind of make it very clear what I'm doing, is I'm going to get the range index, so basically its position or the order in the workbook, and the name. So I'm going to create 2 variables. First one's going to be called range index. It's going to be the named range, and then I'm going to go into the index property, so this will return the index of that named range. And then I'm going to say range name, and then this one's going to be the named range object, and then the name property. So this will return the name of that particular named range. And then from here, oh, not that. And then from here, what we're doing is we're going to set the index as the key and the name as the value. So with dictionaries, the key has to be unique, so you can't, you couldn't do something where you have 2 keys be the same value. They have to be their own unique values, because if you use the same key again, it's going to store whatever value is associated with that key. You can't have the same key twice in a dictionary as a key object. So what we have to do is, in our situation, it's not too hard because that index, there's no duplicate, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's not going to be 2 1s. So we can use that index property and use that as the key for our dictionary. And so how do we now store the values into our dictionary? Well, first thing we're going to do is we're going to call our dictionary object. We're going to pass through square brackets, and then this will be the key for this particular value in our dictionary. So in this example, we want the key to equal, so in this case, if it was 1, so the key for 1, I want the value to be the name. So whatever the index of 1, store the name as the value. Hopefully that made sense. And what I'm going to do is remove that little d. It shouldn't be named. It should be name. And so this will store that in our dictionary. Technically, from here, what I'll do is I'll print out my dictionary so that way you guys can see it. And so we'll just call the range dictionary. Okay, super fast. Love it. So as you can tell, we now have a dictionary that is, in a sense, if you really want to think about it, it's storing the name and the index of each of our named ranges. Now, technically, I haven't tried this yet, but I don't see any reason why we couldn't store the object itself in there. I've tried that before and it seems to work fine. But in this example, we'll just keep it simple. But hopefully what you're seeing now is we kind of have like almost like a list in a sense, but our list is special because our list contains a key and then a value, and then a key and then a value, and then a key and then a value. So that's kind of the ideal with dictionaries. You have a key, and then you can use that key to look up your values. Now, naturally, you can have what we call nested dictionaries. So that's a dictionary within a dictionary. That means potentially here we could have another dictionary that is associated with this key, but that's for another day. This is kind of just introducing the topic for those of us who have never worked with a dictionary before. And also, I do have a video on this topic if some of the VBA people are like, whoa, we're getting into Python now. It's trust me, it's not that hard of a concept. It just takes a little bit getting used to. But I do have a topic on dictionaries. I'll put that down in the link below. I think you should watch it if you're kind of new to Python. Okay, so now that we've done this, we've stored our values in our dictionary. Let's create an instance of PowerPoint and paste all these objects on our slide. So we're now going to create a new instance of PowerPoint. And we're going to say PPT app. We're going to set this equal to, again, the Win32com library. We're going to go into the client object to lowercase c. It is case sensitive if you were curious. Yes, it very much is. And we're going to call it dispatch. In this example, though, we're going to call the PowerPoint application object. And then from here, now that we have that application, we want to make sure that we can see it. So we're going to set the visible property equal to true. And then from here, we're going to create a new presentation. So we'll create a new presentation in the application. And so we'll create a new variable called PPT presentation. We'll set that equal to the PPT app. We're going to go into the presentations collection. So a collection of all the presentations currently in the application. Well, we know from our experience that once we create a new instance, we have none. So we're going to call the add method, and this will add a new presentation, and it will store it in this variable called PPT presentation. Couple things to kind of keep in mind. So Python, we don't have to declare the variable type. It's what we call it dynamically typed. So behind the scenes, Python determines what the data type is. We still need to create a reference to that particular object because later in our code, if we wanted to, all we have to do is just copy this little line right here and we're good to go. And so it just makes our lives easier. Really what I'm doing is I'm just taking what I was doing in VBA and now just crossing it over to Python, ideally. Okay, so from here, what we need to do is we're going to kind of do what we were doing in VBA where I would loop through all of the ranged objects. I would create a slide and then I would copy the range and then paste it onto the slide itself. Now with this one, it's going to be a little bit of a different type of loop, but now instead of looping through all the ranges, we're just going to loop through our dictionary. So we're going to loop through each item in our dictionary. We'll add a slide, copy the range, and paste it. Simple as that. So we're going to say for key, comma item in range dictionary dot items. When we call the items method, what is returned to us are two values. It's a key and it's a value. In fact, really, I'll change it just so it's not confusing. We'll say key and value. So what I'm basically saying here is I'm breaking up this item that's returned to me and I'm saying, hey, there's two components to it. There's a key and there's a value. So now anywhere in my loop, if I call the key variable, this will refer to the key. And then if I call the value variable, it will refer to the value. It'll make a little bit more sense once you see it in action. First thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new slide. But we know with creating a slide, we have to provide an index. Well, lucky for us, we can leverage this little part up here as our index. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the key as the index when creating the slide. It's kind of cheating a little bit. Well, it's not really cheating, but it's a nice little way where we don't have to do any extra work at this point. We can kind of just leverage something that we already have and then just store it in there. Now, obviously, there's a lot of different ways we could do this. We'll kind of explore them as we get there, but at this point, let's just kind of introduce ourselves to the topic and then we'll start doing the more complicated stuff. So we're going to create a slide and we're going to want to be able to refer to that slide later down in the code. So we're going to call a new variable ppt slide and equal this to the ppt presentation. We're going to go into the slides collection and then call the add method. And then there's a couple parameters that we need to pass through. The first one is the index parameter. So this is just simply the index in our particular slide. So which position is it? Well, I'll just pass through the key value. So when we pass through the key value, it will say, okay, the first one is 1. So when I add a new slide, add that to position 1. The next parameter that we need to pass through is the layout parameter. Now, in VBA before, I would do things like ppt blank layout. Unfortunately, when we're working in Python, we're no longer going to be able to use this. We're going to have to use enumeration style. So we're going to have to remember from this point going forward that if we want to use a particular slide layout, we have to know the enumeration number for it. Well, in our example, if we wanted to do a blank layout, the enumeration number is simply 12. So this is referring to a blank slide. And I'll put a little note there that 12 is a blank layout. And that's it. And then from here, now it's safe to copy the range. So we'll copy the range. But this one will be using the value. Make a little bit more sense when you see it. So we'll call the Excel app. We'll go into the range object. We'll pass through the value, and then we'll copy it. Why did I choose the value? Well, remember, I'm choosing the items. This is 1 item. This is 2 items, 3 items, and 4 items. When I loop through this and I return this, I'm breaking each item into a key and a value. So this is the key, this is the value. This is the key, this is the value. Remember, when we want to copy a named range, we simply have to pass through the named range as a string. Well, we can clearly see here that this is a string. It's surrounded by quotation marks. This means it's a string. So all we need to do is pass through the value in our range object, and it will know which range we're talking about. And then all we need to simply do is copy it. So now that we've done that, we can paste the object in a slide. So paste the range in the slide as a linked OLE object. So I'm going to call the PPT slide object. I'm going to go in the shapes collection, and I'm going to call the paste special method. We're going to pass through the data type parameter. 10 refers to a linked OLE object. And then, well, sorry, it's an OLE object. Doesn't mean it's linked, but I want mine to be linked. So it will be true. And I'll put a little note here. 10 is a linked, sorry, not a link. I keep saying linked. It's a OLE object. Perfect. So with that being said, we have everything we need in order to run our code. So let's run it and see what we get. Now, whenever you create a new instance, sometimes it slows down a little bit. I'll close it out again and see if I run it, see if it runs a little bit faster. But clearly we can tell that it created a new presentation and it pasted each object to their corresponding slide. And hey, look at that. It's a linked OLE object. So it might be too early to say this, but I haven't run into the clipboard error that we have been accustomed to seeing in VBA. I'm not going to go as far and say Python alleviates it. I think that's a foolish statement at this point, but I have yet to encounter it. So it seems like Python is a little bit more robust when it comes to working with the clipboard, and it seems like we're not encountering that error. At least at this point, I haven't. So that's really exciting because we saw multiple times in our code that it was causing all sorts of trouble when it came to all the extra code that we had to add into it to make sure our code was a little bit more stable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this out. I'm going to run it again and just kind of see if it runs a little bit faster. Okay, that was much faster, as you can tell. And that was like blazing fast. That's not that normal, I feel like, with VBA. At least in my opinion, it's not. But again, it copied it over here. All that cool stuff. I think this is just cool. I mean, me personally, I think this is awesome. I was just able to do everything I was doing in VBA, but now I was doing it in Python, and it seems like it's working better and it's working faster. So if that's not incentive, I don't know what is. So if you have any questions, please put them down in the comments below. I tried to increase my font size, so please let me know if you can see this size, because I know some people are having trouble seeing it. So I really want to make sure people can see the code, because if you can't see the code, it's not doing you any good. So please let me know if this is a good size. I can zoom in a little bit more, but I'm in at about 150%. So this is 150%. This is 175. I could go into 200. I think that's a little bit too much because it might be hard to write like a very long line, but let me know. So 200%, 175, 150. So, just let me know which one works for you, and then I'll use that as a setting going forward. Yes, sorry, lost my train of thought. Also, if you could make sure to like the video, we always appreciate the support. We want to make sure people can find these videos. I think people have been receiving them pretty well, so I want to make sure people can find them. Also, if you're not already, make sure to subscribe to the channel, so that way you're going to get regular updates as we keep exploring Python and the whole Excel object model together. I'm going to start going into stuff like, I'm not going to try to shy away from it. We're going to go into kind of the more complicated topics, and really, let's just see how we can leverage Python with Excel in a lot of different ways. So I'm really excited about this series. I think people are going to really enjoy it. So thanks again for watching, guys. We will see you in the next video.